All right. Osio, Maburiga, Buiti Rabon Wayu. Welcome. Well, let's see. Right about now, what time is it? It's Buiti Gunya. But anyway, welcome to the Red Road East. I'm your host, Feerce Truth Seeker. The Red Road East is an indigenous TV program and YouTube channel dedicated to archiving and preserving the history, legacy, and culture of the indigenous peoples of the Americas east of the Mississippi River and the Caribbean. Tonight's show, woo-wee, it's gonna be action-packed, okay? I have cousin Fatou, the doc, Fatou Diara. She is gonna go ham. Let me tell you, she is gonna go ham. Ha! That's a mug. Oh yeah, yeah. She's gonna light it up. It's gonna be lit. But anyway, I'm happy to be here, and I see that Fire. Oh wait, Firebird did join, but she dropped off. Okay, yeah, and let's switch here. Someone asked, "Why does it say 10 p.m.?" Yeah, I talked about that in the live that I did a couple of hours ago. I don't know why. That's StreamYard's glitch, you know. But anyway, I also have a guest for you, someone new to our channel, okay, and is actually a cousin of mine, and she is a heavyweight in her own right. She is really, really an adept when it comes to genealogy and so many other things. At first, I thought that I was the only griot in my family, okay? But then when I met Cuz and there's another cousin of ours as well. Hopefully one day I'll get her on the channel too. But it's good to know that I'm not the only griot in the family, okay? And they're very nice with it, and I am so honored to have them as family. We've been going back and forth with the genealogy and stuff for like maybe 5 years now, something like that. And my other cousin, even longer than that, we've been going back and forth with the genealogy and sharing family trees. But enough of that. Let me open up, and without further ado, I'm going to bring on the doc. Hey, cuz.
Hey,
The doc, hard as a mother. She is something else, man. She is she's such a master at this here. Hard as a mother, you know, just like there's no other, you know, who can do this quite like she does when it comes to this autochthonous DNA. Oh man, I tell you, man, Doc, a lot of people have hit me up and said, "When are you gonna bring the Doc back on? That was your best show."
oh really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. People tell me that all. They say that was your best show when you had the Doc on here. Yep, I kid you not.
Well, I'm flattered.
Yeah. And I will also bring in, I have some co hosts. Firebird Grey Wolf, my godmother Firebird Grey Wolf.
OCO.
Hey, OCO, I don't see you.
No.
And I had a bad hair day.
A bad hair day. Oh, man. Well, I mean, welcome to the club. I had a bad shave day. I didn't shave. So, but anyway, yeah. And I'm going to be so to also bring in my cousin, Empress Straker-Holder Eel. Empress. I guess she stepped away for a second, but she'll be on the panel.
Peace
Um,
and love. I'm here.
okay, good, good. So we're gonna open up with Doc. Doc, the floor is yours.
Okay. You have the first slide.
Yep. Okay, give me 1 second here. Which file and downloads. One. Okay.
Okay. So this is let me just start off by saying that there's so much dialogue about whether DNA testing is accurate when it comes
Oh,
to
wait, hold on, Doc. Let me get an audio check. If you are in the chat, let me know how Doc's audio is coming across. Is it good enough? Continue to talk. And
yes, there's so much discussion about whether DNA testing is accurate, whether it's inaccurate. And what I will show today is that it's very much accurate. Okay. There
okay,
can be more than one truth at the same time, and that's what the DNA is showing. Okay, there's been a lot of advancement when it comes to DNA testing. It's not as rudimentary in terms of population genetics like it was in the past. So now we're becoming more sophisticated, and more truth is being revealed through the DNA test, and it's revealing different aspects of our history that came together to make us the people that we are today, whether we're from North America or whether we're from the Caribbean. And so that's what I will be showing today. So here is my true ancestry test. For those of you in the listening audience, who have
I'm
attended.
having trouble hearing the doctor very well. It's kind of like transformers coming in and out.
okay. Doc, are you able to make a little bit of adjustment with your mic?
Hold on.
I thought it was just me, but yeah, it is a little bit.
How is it now?
I thought so too. So that's why I didn't want to say anything at first.
Hmm,
How is it now?
sounds okay.
It sounds okay. Okay, this is a my true ancestry map of South America. And what I want to show is that a lot of people in the indigenous movement have a problem with being labeled, having their DNA being labeled African. Okay, that seems to offend many people because they feel that it contradicts their oral history or their knowledge of their indigenous roots to the Americas, but it does not. Okay,
No, it
the
doesn't.
issue is in the labeling. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, the issue is in the labeling. It's just that scientists have chosen to label the Asian-derived population, the population that we term Native Americans, as the indigenous people. Now, many of their ancestors were here for a very long time as well, but that label of being indigenous is exclusively assigned to them. And I think this is where the conflict comes in. So anything outside of their particular DNA is not acknowledged as being ancient to America. But I'm going to show with this My True Ancestry that even My True Ancestry says differently. Okay, so this is a map of a person who is of Honduran descent, and she's a mestiza. She's not Afro-Honduran. She's not Garifuna. She's a mestiza. In fact, she's about 40% Spaniard and 40% what they term Native American. And she gave me access to her DNA, and I uploaded it to the American map of My True Ancestry. And you can see here, these are the areas that she pinges. You can see the 1500 AD site, which is an Inca site. And you can see some other areas as well in the Mexican region, Central American region. And I just want you to take note of the site that she's pinging, okay? Let's go to the next slide.
Okay. That one. Image. Second. Let's put it up. There we go.
Okay, so now this is the same map of somebody who is from Guyana, of Afro-Guyanese descent, okay? And if you look, it's hard to see.
You have a question, Doc. It's on the screen. I put it on the screen.
Yes, this is from My True Ancestry. This is an archaeogenetic map from My True Ancestry. And you can see the areas that she's able to pinch. And it's not very visible, but I actually have the arrow at 3000 BC site. Now, this is someone who is predominantly of African descent. What I'm showing here, and anyone who plays with My True Ancestry who's of predominant African labeled descent, they will pinch these same areas. But someone who's a mestizo will not pinch these areas because they cannot pinch a 3000 BC site in South America. Okay? So the point I'm making is that we can't rely on mainstream scientists to tell us that a good portion of our lineage is ancient to America. We have to do our own thinking and do our own deductive reasoning.
Thank you.
But there's no need to become offended by what we are genetically.
Thank you.
So I'm showing that it took African genetics to pinch the most ancient sites on this American map. And yet the young lady who's a mestiza, she could not pinch that. She could not pinch that. And she is physically indistinguishable from anybody from Mexico. Okay, she could not pinch those sites. So I'm not saying she doesn't have a lineage that goes back here in America. I'm saying that according to the archaeogenetic map, if you start talking about going back in time, like 3000 BC, the only way you can pinch that site is you would have to have African DNA predominance. And that's not me saying that. That's the map showing that when one uploads their DNA, their raw data. Okay, we can go to the next slide.
Okay. Let me remove that one. And put up the next image file.
Okay.
There you go.
So this is an anthropological study called Southern Indian Studies. And this particular uh, study was done in the Waccamaw area in southeast part of North Carolina. Now, the significance of this anthropological study is that when they did an analysis of the skulls from this particular area, they identified them as being dolichocephalic, which is long-headed. They also noted that these skulls had prognathism, which is a protrusion of the lower jaw, which makes an angle, a slight slanting angle. If one was to measure it from the forehead to the tip of the chin, there would be an angle. It wouldn't be exactly up and down. Okay, and those two features of dolichocephalic plus prognathism is one that you would see with Negro descended people. Now, when you read the studies, it does not tell you that these skeletons are Negroid, but you would have to know that those are two characteristics that you will find with Negro skeletons. Now, the argument can be that prognathism can be seen in the Asian derived groups, in some of them, like the Mongoloid. I know those are old terms, right? However, the difference is they are brachiocephalic, meaning broad-headed. So when you add long-headedness and you add prognathism, that equals a Negroid skeleton. And I'm just pointing out that this is what was documented in the Waccamaw area with the skeletons in this particular anthropological text. We can go to the next study,
Okay.
or the next slide, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So again, we have to do our own research. We can't rely on somebody to tell us that Negro peoples inhabited the Americas. We have to conclude this from our own research. Nobody's going to sit down and tell us this. Okay, so this is the Eurogenes of Kennewick Man. Now, you know, a lot of us heard of Kennewick Man. He was an ancient man, and he was primarily what we call American Indian, Native American. So there's all this talk about Kennewick Man. However, what nobody talks about is when you break down Kennewick Man's DNA, while majority of his DNA is American Indian, let's look at almost 4.5% of his DNA is sub-Saharan African. So now here's my question.
Exactly.
Who was here when Kennewick Man and his people arrived?
Right.
Should acquire 4.5% of his DNA that belongs to African type people.
Mm-hmm.
These are the types of questions that we need to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's just the point that I'm making. Let's go to the next slide.
Okay. I'm getting an echo from somebody.
So This is a timeline. Actually, my cousin. I could have chosen anyone's timeline who comes out of North America, and this is very, very typical from 23andMe to timeline. While I don't necessarily agree with the dates, the sequencing is pretty accurate. Okay, so this touches up upon what Tyrone Lewis Cannon studied about our people. In his study, it was about 300 something subjects, and what he found was 88% of us had Southeast Asian DNA, which represented the Austronesian markers. And we can see that at the very bottom, the second to the bottom, with the Filipino and the Austronesian, the Southeast African, and the Indonesian. Okay. And then when you add the Native American, okay, then you end up getting 90, it was like 90 something percent, almost 100% of so-called African Americans. If you add together the Austronesian, represented by the Southeast Asian, and the Native American, almost 100% of us have it. Now, the significance of that is not that we're Southeast Asians, nor are we Native Americans. It's that the fact that almost 100% of us have those markers speaks to the fact that a good portion of our lineage had to be here to receive those populations when they came in. Okay, that's the significance of it. But everything about this timeline is very important. What I'm finding is that a lot of our people tend to ignore at what's at the top of the timeline. You know, this is the conflict that I'm seeing. We want to talk about the indigenous part, that's towards the bottom. Okay.
Right.
The Manchurian Mongolian represents Asian, also Asian migration here. But we want to talk about the bottom. We don't want to talk about the top. But
Right.
more than one truth is happening here.
Right.
Okay. When you look at the very bottom, that represents what Tyrone Lewis Cannon was talking about, the introgression, the movement of those populations intermixing with us. Okay, the very bottom. And then when you start talking about the Spanish, Portuguese, the North African, and the Ghanaian, all of that is the Moorish element that came in the 1500s. There was a whole cleansing out, which I'll get into later as we analyze your grandmom's DNA. But there was a whole cleansing out of Europe, of the Moorish population, of various populations that came into the Americas, into the Caribbean, and also into the colonies from the 1500s going on. And then as you move up, you notice you see the Nigerian, the Angola, the British, the Senegambian.
Mm-hmm.
That represents the transatlantic slave trade, which happened. So you have three things that are being shown in this timeline. The ancient, what we were anciently, which is a mixture of the Southeast African mixed with the Austronesian. Then you have the cleansing of Europe, of the Moors. And then you have the transatlantic slave trade.
Mm-hmm.
And all these events influenced us. But what we were anciently was on the bottom.
Right.
Now, there's a little bit of a trick to this, because when we're presented with DNA, we're presented with the highest percentage as if that's what we are primarily. And that's what's deceptive.
Right.
And how they present that. So let's say if she did ancestry DNA, what's at the top of her timeline would be presented to her as if that's what she is majority. And that's the best way I can tell the audience to imagine it is imagine looking through a telescope, a long cylinder. Okay. Now bear in mind what you were initially, your foundation is at the very end of the cylinder or the telescope. And what is at the what is at the actual site, at your site, where you are looking through the telescope, adjacent to your eyes, will be what took place more recently. That can give an illusion, if that's making any sense, that that is what's the largest component of your ancestral composition. It's really an illusion, because what took place more recently is closest to you. Do you understand? So
Mm-hmm.
as being the biggest part of your DNA, but that's not true.
Right.
What you were initially was at the bottom, and
That's
all of these other things were invasion, cleansings, slave trading. Do you understand?
oh yeah.
So it is to their advantage for you to think that what you are is what took place more recently. In other words, I'm saying that when they give you these high percentages of Nigerian, it doesn't mean you don't have Nigerian DNA, but it is in their best interest for you to think of yourself as just primarily Nigerian, and
Right.
to be totally unaware of what you were on the bottom.
Exactly.
That is in their best interest. So that's why I'm explaining it. Because the core of what we are, at least for many of us, is what's on the bottom.
Right.
But we can't pretend what took place at the top didn't happen.
Exactly. That's the part where they mess up at.
Right. That is where they mess up at. Now, I know some people talk about it wasn't easy. It was a feat to come from West Africa and go to places like that straight to America. A lot of us acquired the transatlantic slave trade DNA via the Caribbean. It was not done directly. It was done via the Caribbean. So it's not a surprise that in the Caribbean, they tend to, in general, of course, it varies from island to island and families to families, but they tend to have a higher percentage of DNA from the coastal areas. That just makes sense because of proximity. But
Yeah.
we tend to get it from the Caribbean. And if you also look, you will find that people who come from the tribes, let's say if they come from the tribes and they don't really come from enslaved lineages, they tend to have less matches to coastal African tribes as well. So everything is lining up. People who tend to come from the enslaved lineages will have a tendency to have more matches to coastal African tribes, which makes sense
Mm-hmm.
because you have less control over who you're mating with. You don't have options as to who you're mating with, as opposed to people who come from the free lines, who come from the tribes, where they can pick and choose from other neighboring tribes, or they were more insular, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much what I wanted to say about that slide.
Okay. That's the last slide
Yes,
that I have for you.
right. We can go into your grandmother's results. Because
Okay.
it touches up on what I was talking about right here.
Okay. Give me 1 second here. I just have to.
Is this your personal family tree?
This is a cousin of mine, a first cousin of mine. Our mothers are sisters. This
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is her timeline.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. Pull it up now. Sorry about that. I just had to scratch her name out of there. That's what took me so long with that. Okay, share screen, image. This thing's not coming up. Give me a second. I'm having a technical issue here.
Feerce, are you there?
Yeah, I'm having a technical issue. Just give me a second.
Okay.
I have to do this a different way. Okay, let me remove this. Maybe move. Y'all can talk while I have an issue here. You can chime in, Firebird.
What?
And so you can chime in while I'm trying to deal with this technical issue.
Okay. Any questions from the audience for the doctor? Any questions?
I should have this ready in just a second.
The thing that I like about native DNA is that he has various populations all over the planet that he matches our DNA to. So unlike your mainstream companies, which is dependent on whether a particular group participates a lot, you will get matches, let's say, to Nigeria, and you won't see matches to any other group of people except, the coastal African countries. But what happens is that with native DNA, you get to see that you have matches to various groups. Now, I think that is what is deceptive about mainstream DNA testing, because there's only a limited amount of groups that we're matching to, and there's far more to our DNA than that. Okay, so this is an example of what I'm talking about.
Sorry, but I had to scratch your name out,
Right.
privacy purposes.
Okay, so this is exactly what we're talking about. If you remember in that timeline, at very bottom was Southeast Bantu. You will find that a lot of these matches that we have to the, I know it's considered a pejorative term, but the southern portions of Africa, those are really ancient matches, like matches to Namibia, the Zulu. You will find that that's ancient matching. As a matter of fact, native DNA studied Polynesian people DNA. It was of interest to him, Chris Lusakis, who's the founder of it, because his grandfather is Hawaiian. And he told me, and he actually not only told me this, he actually has a video on Polynesian DNA. He said on average, Polynesians have about 20 to 25% of their DNA that comes from the Great Lakes area of the African continent. They have similar DNA, 20 to 25% of their DNA.
You have a question here, Doc.
Did many of us start out in the Americas? Yes.
They're gonna come get me. They're gonna come get me.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But what is thrown to us and emphasized is what's at the top.
A lot of DNA profiles, they say the sub-Saharan African percentage is very high. And I've always been very curious about that.
That is the oldest DNA on the planet.
Yeah, okay.
I would hope it's high. So when you start going down, you look at the Bantu, Namibia, Zulu matches. These are ancient matches. This is what's expected. Then you have Long Island, Bahamas. That represents matching here in the Americas. The Mandinka of Senegal. Now, Mandinka of Senegal, that can be literal or that can be a representation of matches to the Moors, because you will find that the North Africans, a big component of their DNA is Mandinka type DNA. You will also find that. So that's a little tricky. It can mean literally having ancestors of that group, or it can be just a component of the North African. Then, of course, she has matching to Afro-Americans, African Americans, and we know that the intra-American slave trade was the first slave trade before there was an African slave trade. I want to emphasize that. Okay, so there's a reason for these matches. Then, then she has also the, yes, that's true. They were the first haplogroups in America, and those are African haplogroups, absolutely. And then you can see she has matches to the Akan of Ghana, again, a coastal tribe. And you will, again, the transatlantic slave trade influence. Then Grand Bahamas, the Americas. Then Mozambique represents an ancient matching. Gabon, Angola, again, ancient matching. Angola may or may not represent ancient matching because there was actually slaves, enslaved Africans that came from that region, but it could also be ancient. Then you have Kenya, ancient matching. And now we start getting into the,
Did you say that Native Americans were the first enslaved?
yes.
Okay, the first reported account is 1610. That was the first reported account. And African slavery began officially in 1619.
Mm-hmm.
So we as Native Americans have about 9 years on the African enslavement.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. And then, of course, they started enslaving the people in the Caribbean.
Well, I'm talking about on North
Oh, North America.
the states.
Right, right, in North America.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And now we start seeing the matches to the various ethnic groups, like the Monacan, the Amerindian Northern Blue Ridge and Piedmont, that's the Monacan. Then you have the Tigray Ethiopia. Now, let me explain Tigray Ethiopia, because you're probably wondering, well, what would she be doing with Ethiopian DNA? By the way, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Christopher Columbus took 30 Tainos back to Spain in 1493. The transatlantic slave trade, that was part of that history.
Mm-hmm. The Tigray Ethiopia comes in with the Moors. The North Africans who were called Amizigh people, that's what they were. Genetically, a big component of their DNA stems from the Horn of Africa. So you will find that many of us, when we take this test, we get matches to Ethiopia. Remember, I said earlier that the Mandinka may also be a component of the Moors?
Mm-hmm.
When they migrated from Ethiopia, the Amizigh people originally migrated from the Horn. When they migrated from the Horn and they went into North Africa, they amalgamated with more ancient people that were there called the Bafour people, and those people would be the antecedents of the people that we call Mandinka and those people who are all related in West Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when we see matches to Sudan and matches to Ethiopia, is a reflection of having DNA from the Amazigh people. And how do we get DNA from the Amazigh people? Well, you will find that when you go back into the records, a lot of these indentured servants who were black men were from Europe. And if you trace them, they were originally they were from England by way of Portugal and Spain. So we have the first recorded indentured servant Manuel Rodriguez, and his name became Manuel Driggers, and he was called a Portuguese Negro. So that's a good example of what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And many of them, this is why you would find people like the Melungeons, and you would find many of the tribal members, and many of us as well, will have this DNA, which is North African. They will get North African traces. You will see tiny matches from the Middle East. It actually comes from those black men who were indentured servants because they were from Europe, and their ancestors originally were from the Iberian Peninsula.
And she has Melungeon in there too. It's not in this top 20 what's it, how many is it here?
Yeah, I think it's about 20.
About 20, yeah. It's not in this top 20, but it's there on the other page.
Right, exactly. And then when you go down, you have the Lumbee, and Lumbee can mean two things. It can mean either literal matching from the Lumbee as we know them today, but not necessarily. It just means that she shares ancestors with the antecedents of the Lumbee, which is more likely the case because of where she's from. Your grandmom is from the islands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So she would share lineage because we know the Lumbee, they're an amalgamated tribe of Algonquian, Siouan, and Iroquoian people, Tuscarora, and various Algonquian tribes and Siouan tribes that came together. So she would share lineage with many of their ancestors. So that would automatically pinch the Lumbee. And we can see going right down underneath, you can see Sioux. So you can see she has matches to the Sioux Nation because of Siouan lineage.
And cousin who's on, she has the verification of that. She's gonna chime in a little bit later, and she's gonna validate that with some oral history from her, from what she grew up hearing.
Oh,
I'm concerned. She's saying she got bumped. There's a storm coming.
Who got bumped?
I'm reading in the chat.
Somebody got bumped.
Ambassador Empress, is that your cousin?
Yeah, she's on. No, she's here. She's there.
Okay.
Your mic is on. Your mic is muted. Because you're there though. I just have the solo screen up. With the certificate, but if I unsolo it, hold on. Let's see. If I unsolo it here. Let's see.
Somebody's requesting Feerce to make it possible to be heard by you.
Yeah, I put that up there.
Oh, you put that up there.
Yeah, that's I think that's for the doc. I think they're addressing that. I'm not sure. Um, is that question for the doc or is it for me? I'm not sure if that question was for the doc or if it was. Yeah, maybe it was for me. Can you be a little more specific with your question, Gail? But yeah, cousin Empress, you are on the panel. Oh, she dropped off now. Yeah, she was just there. She dropped off.
Are they saying they want to be verbally heard?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm not sure. Yeah, I was asking if she could clarify.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. She in the chat. Let me see. Yeah, my question. Kittles, co-founder of African Ancestry DNA, did an mtDNA for someone I know, and the mtDNA results came up in haplogroup G. How would that be interpreted for them, and what more can they do?
they would have to look up which population has haplogroup G, and I'm not familiar with G, not for mitochondrial DNA. They would have to look up that population and then do their genealogy.
That makes sense. And there's um, another comment here. Let's see where it's, um,
Is Mr. Gates a part of African ancestry DNA?
That I'm not sure.
Feerce, is Mr. Gate, is he a part of African ancestry DNA?
um, I'm not sure. I know he is affiliated because I think African DNA, that's Rick Kittles's, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know they're like affiliated with each other. I don't know to what extent, um, you know, that.
I question that because of his philosophy. Everyone is directly from Africa, no Indian blood, and inviting guests on and changing what they know about their family history, and some of them agreeing with him because they're getting paid,
Mm,
celebrities.
yeah, exactly, exactly. That's you know, that's a hoax. You know, he's been exposed. Uh,
Well,
so,
maybe you could quickly tell the audience a little bit about that being exposed and give
oh
an
well,
example.
yeah, yeah. Well, pretty much my audience has already heard it from me and from other people. Um, they're quite familiar with that hoax.
Oh, I just assumed new people were tuning in.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, no. They're quite familiar. They're quite familiar with that farce.
It's all in the labeling. The people that are being called indigenous are not as old as the people that are being labeled foreign.
Hmm.
It's all in the labeling. Hmm.
Amanda says her household group is part of said M7 to be exact.
M and L, they were here.
And yeah, yeah, it is. Rick Kittles is. Okay, here's Empress. She's back. Empress, cousin. Oh, her mic is muted. Cousin, Empress, unmute your mic for a second. Can you hear me, Empress? Your mic is muted, Empress. I don't know if she can hear me or not. Just trying to get a audio check with you, cuz, but your mic is muted. Anyway, um, maybe she dropped off again. Okay, we do have one person that is new to this program, Gail. Welcome, Gail. Glad to have you. Yeah.
Is that in response to what I said? There might be new people in your audience that doesn't know about the shenanigans of Mr. Gates, because
Yeah.
you're knocking down the gate.
Well, I'm gonna let cuz, cuz, Empress.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah, yeah. Okay, just wanted to get an audio check with you there. Yeah. So with regards to gates, I'll let the doc talk about that. I've talked about it quite a bit, but I don't want to hog the show, so I'll let the doc deal with the gates. Yeah, you want to chime in on that? I don't want to. I want to let Doc.
Well, again, it has to do with the labeling because they're using the Asian derived population as the standard for what is native to America, right? Indigenous to America. So if your percentages are only 1% or 2%, then that somehow or another negates who you are when you're not even the same population. And see, Tyrone Lewis Cannon, his study was very significant because the issue is not if the percentage is low, we're not the same population. The issue is that in our population, almost all of us have tiny percentages, regardless of how tiny they are. And then the $1,000,000 question becomes why? In order for that to happen, it would have meant that a good portion of our ancestors had to be here to mix with them. So the question isn't why do you only have 1% or whatever percent it is. The question becomes why is it that so many of us have these tiny percentages? And what took place in history that so many of us have these tiny percentages?
Right. And
that means that there's a whole population here that's not being acknowledged, that absorbed them. He's speaking from the perspective that the Native American was the only one, the people that are being termed Native Americans, they were the only ones over here.
Right.
Tyrone's study blew that away.
Yeah, blew that away.
Right. Tyrone's study actually shows up right here. Because when you go through, okay, we're up to Western Europe. We're not surprised about that. Then you have the Cherokee. We know that the Amerindian Wars were taking place and there was enslavement during those wars. And the biggest place that they were sent to was the Caribbean. Then you have the Powhatan of Virginia, the Creek, Chickasaw. Then, of course, the Northeast tribes, the Mohawk. I'm sure King Philip's War. Then you have Russia, which doesn't surprise me. She can match Russia because of Ashkenazi Jewish matching. Also, some tribes.
Right. Well, that's in our direct lineage. My great grandmother, her father, has that heritage.
Right. So it all shows up. Then of course she has some matches to Mexico because we know that a lot of the Mesoamericans, especially when the conquistadors came, a lot of them ran up as well. And then you have the matches to the Occaneechi Saponi, and then you have matches to the Roma of Spain. Now, I want to stop there and talk about the matching to Roma, Spain, because you had this whole cleansing out of Europe. And not only did you have the cleansing out of the Moors, you had the cleansing out of brown populations like the Roma people who were considered undesirables as well. So that's why almost all of us have some matching to the Roma population. Okay.
Yep.
And then she has some matches to the Israeli population, the Jewish population. A lot of this comes from the mixing with Sephardic Jews as well, who were fleeing.
Yeah, all of that is in our direct
right
lineage. We know who those people are in my lineage.
right?
That's a
So
lot in my research.
the DNA is lining up with your research,
Very
and
so.
you have the matches to Pakistan, which comes from the Roma, because the Roma people have matches to Pakistan and Afghanistan and northern India. So that's also a common finding as well, that many of us will get these matches to Pakistan via Roma DNA. And last but not least, on her list, even though her list is far more exhaustive than this,
Right.
see the matches to Indonesia, and that touches up upon the Austronesian matches that we have. The Austronesians being one of the earliest people to come and visit us, and we intermingled with them. That's why so many of us in Tyrone's study, almost 90% of us, had matches to Southeast Asia, and I showed it in the timeline of my cousin, how she had matches to Philippines and Indonesia. So your grandmother also shows matches as well to Southeast Asia, Indonesia as well. That's
Mm-hmm.
ancient matching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
So you basically, when you look at this list,
huh?
so when we analyze this list, her top population, even though she has a very exhaustive uh, set of matching populations, the top populations that we're showing here, it shows again three phases of history. We have the very ancient, shown by the matches to the Bantu of Namibia, Kenya, Mozambique, South Africa. That's ancient matching. Okay, and then you have the matches to Indonesia. That represents the Austronesian, and we saw that on the timeline of my cousin. You saw the Southeast African right there with the Austronesian, the Southeast Asian. Okay, now you also have the evidence of the cleansing of Europe, and we have the Roma, we have the Mandinka, which is Moorish, we have the matches to Ethiopia, which is a component of the Amazigh people, because they all have matches to Ethiopia. So you would have to understand what the North African components are, so it would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
We have the evidence of the cleansing, also the matches to Israel. Again, all these people were in Europe,
Mm.
and there was a whole cleansing out of Europe. Then, of course, she has the matches to coastal African populations like the Akan, Angola, and that represents the African slave trade. Angola may or may not, as I mentioned before, it could be ancient as well, but that's sort of a gray zone. It could also represent some African slave trading as well.
And also cousin Empress, who's on a little bit later, she's gonna verify and validate with the family oral history what's on the list,
Okay.
so that people don't think that there's it's just something that just came up in somebody's database, and it's just y'all are just going by what they're saying and blah blah blah.
No, his stuff definitely lines up with genealogy.
Mm-hmm.
Fierce, which grandmother are you talking about? Your father or your mother's?
My mother's
Your mother. Okay.
my mother's mother,
Okay.
my grandmother.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to look at the deep dive as well, or just that?
Just that, because the deep dive tends to
Okay,
reiterate this.
gotcha. Did you want to what did you want to present now, or did you want to take questions from the audience,
I
or
can take questions.
okay, questions and also commentary from the other co-hosts? You want to do that as well?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. So Empress. Um, oh. Yeah, yeah. Faber, you read what you wanted to read, right?
I didn't hear you.
You read the thing that said you wanted to read earlier. You read it already.
No, I didn't read it yet.
You want to read it?
Okay, give me a moment.
And in the meantime, you have some comments here, Doc.
Uh-huh.
Oh, also for the new person, Gail, who's new, also to chime in and add on to what the doc was saying. Basically, the thing with Gates and Kittles is that their whole thing with the DNA is that in terms of indigenous, they say, okay, well, so-called African Americans, blah blah blah, they have less than 1% indigenous DNA, blah blah blah. Okay, but the thing is that they're not looking at East Coast natives in their samples. Okay, the people that they have in their sample set are like coming from like Central America. It's like Mayan Pima populations. Things of that nature. It's not East Coast tribes like what the doc is looking at here with native ancestry. Native ancestry, they have the actual tribes DNA that they're comparing our DNA to. Okay, so that's why you see our stuff come up here with native DNA because a great majority of us are from the tribes here in the East Coast, and of course, this is not the end all and be all because remember the people that are on the reservations today, they don't have the intact DNA of the people that were there back in ancient times before they started mixing. Okay, but they do have enough of that DNA to where we can use it to see how we connect to those tribes. Okay, so that's just to clear it up a little bit there. Um, Also, you have a comment here, Doc. Uh, Someone is saying.
No.
So technically, we should have our own category for those originating in the Americas, correct?
Yes, yes. We have our own category. As a matter of fact, a lot, when you look at I'm going to try to explain this to the best of my ability. When you look at DNA testing and you look at various groups, you're looking at everyone else is given a category based on their geopolitical location, and you don't see the components. This is why the average person is totally unaware that Polynesians have 20 to 25% genetic matching with the Great Lakes area of Africa. Because when they are analyzed genetically, they're given a category. They're not analyzed by their components. We're analyzed by our components. We're not given a geopolitical category which hides our components like the other groups. Because if you were to open up all these groups around the planet, if you were to open up their DNA, you would see a tiny bit of African DNA.
Mm-hmm.
It's percentages,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes any sense.
Yep.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay. Um, so they also ask, they say, couldn't Middle Eastern mean Palestinian Arab since Israel is a new country populated by Eastern Europeans?
I believe that it's more the ones that are Sephardic. I don't think it's Eastern European.
And
That's correct.
oh well, I'll get to the other questions. Yeah, so you ready, Firebird?
Yeah, I just want to give the audience a little breakdown on how slavery became such a business, and some of the steps that they went through to enslave people and the mixture. For a long time, the history of slavery in early America was told almost exclusively as a story of African labor. But over the last few decades, historians have uncovered a massive parallel system, the widespread enslavement of indigenous people, which served as a functional pillar of the early East Coast colonies. Between the arrival of Europeans in the early 18th century, an estimated 2.5 million to 5 million indigenous people were enslaved throughout the Americas. On the East Coast, this trade fundamentally reshaped the geographic demographics and power dynamics of both New England and the American South. The mechanics of the trade, a triangular system. Colonists quickly realized that keeping enslaved Native Americans close to their home territories was a risky business strategy. Because they knew the land escape was relatively easy and their nearby kin posed a constant threat of retaliation. To solve English colonists developed a devastating trade network. They exported enslaved Native Americans to the Caribbean, for example, Barbados, Jamaica, and imported enslaved Africans in their place. In other words, it was a trade off. Regional breakdown, New England versus the Carolinas. The practice varied across the East Coast, but two primary hubs drove the trade. New England, the aftermath of war. In the North, enslavement was primarily a weapon used to break the resistance of powerful tribal nations. Following major conflicts, the Puritans, not the Catholics, used captivity as both a source of profit and a means of cultural erasure. The Pequot War, 1637, after dismantling the Pequot Nation, the Massachusetts Bay Colony enslaved the survivors. Many were shipped to the West Indies in exchange for sugar and African slaves, while others were distributed as domestic servants to prominent New England families. King Philip's War, 1675 1676. This devastating conflict ended with the capture of thousands of Wampanoag, Nipmuc, and Narragansett people. Records show that hundreds, including the family of the Wampanoag leader Metacom, which is King Philip, was sold into Caribbean plantations. The American South, Charlestown as a slave hub, while New England enslaved captives of war, the southern colonies built an economy explicitly centered on a commercial indigenous slave trade. The epicenter of this was Charlestown, now Charleston, South Carolina, founded in 1670. Proxy warfare, rather than hunting for slaves themselves, English traders armed specific tribes like the Westos and the Yamasee with muskets. In exchange, these tribes raided rival interior nations to capture prisoners for the British market. The scale between 1670 and 1715, South Carolina exported more enslaved Native Americans than it imported enslaved Africans. It was the colony's primary economic engine before rice and indigo took over. The turning points and decline by the mid 1700s, the open trade of enslaved Native Americans on the East Coast devastatingly slowed down due to three major factors: the Yamasee War, demographic collapse, the rise of African chattel slavery, the legacy of, one moment, the legacy of bureaucratic erasure. One of the reasons this history remains hidden for so long is the process historians call paper transformation. As African and indigenous people worked, lived, and intermarried on coastal plantations, colonial census takers and tax collectors stopped distinguishing between them. Over time, individuals originally recorded as Indian were legally reclassified as mulatto or black in public records. This bureaucratic shift systematically erased the documented survival of many coastal Native American lineages, hiding a complex history of shared struggle and survival that modern descendants and historians are still piecing back together.
Nice. Nice. Can you send me a copy of that?
I sure will.
Is that
I
from
sure
Indian
will.
slavery?
What did she say?
Is that from the book Indian Slavery?
This is just information that I gathered over the time period.
Oh, okay.
And I want to stress that the Catholic Church, of course, they get a bad record, but actually, in reality, it was the Puritans that wanted religious freedom that were deeply involved in the enslavement of indigenous people. They relied upon the Old Testament to guide them on what they felt was proper to enslave and put people in bondage as savages and uh, uh, savages. I'll just say savages because they were non-Christians and they felt that they had a right religiously to enslave indigenous people and put them into bondage.
Hmm. Mhm.
And Fierce Truth Seeker, I wanted to add some more history for you.
Mhm.
Your family uh, is Garifuna, right?
Yeah.
And they're also the products of uh, the indigenous slave trade. Okay, your personal history goes further than you even think because the doctor uncovered the fact that your grandmother was a product of the indigenous slave trade. However, historically, St. Vincent was not a slave portal. It was a stronghold protected by the Kalinago or Caribs.
Yeah.
And most likely, your family extends past St. Vincent's because natives came down there to escape the slavery from the other Caribbean countries. They came by canoe and settled and joined in with the St. Vincentines, the Caribs down there to help in encroaching Spanish, French, and British colonizers. That was a safety hole. So they join in to fight against encroaching slaveries. And slave owners and slave ships would not come to St. Vincent. So your family history is further than you think. You might want to find out relatives in other Caribbean countries as well.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm quite familiar with that history that you're bringing forth there. Now, when you talk about our family, we have different lines. Um, so our lines definitely go beyond St. Vincent because
Yeah.
you got to remember, our lines also go on certain sides. We go to Barbados. Then
Okay.
you got on other lines, you got Guyana.
Okay.
Then on other lines, you got Jamaica. And
Okay.
then on other lines, you got Trinidad. Then and cousin she's gonna come in and she's gonna tell about a whole bunch of other lineage, family oral history as well. Um, Cousin, were you finished, Firebird?
Yeah,
You had some more to add?
I was just thinking, um, um, uh, what your people went through,
Mhm.
escaping down there to St. Vincent's, and other relatives you said were in other areas of the Caribbean,
Yeah.
and just trying to figure out uh, what they went through to fight the colonizers down there in St. Vincent's, joining in together, coming to St. Vincent's, and joining in together to fight against colonizers.
Hmm.
So it's a wonderful history.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. Yeah, we got other, and then we also got we got the Arawak as
And
well.
the Arawak.
In that lineage, pretty much all of the indigenous tribes that were there. Cousin, Empress, cousin Empress, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Hey, um, now you were one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on was because for those who say that who knock the DNA and stuff like that, I
Mm,
particularly wanted you on because you have that piece of the lineage um, that
mm,
complements. So, like for the longest, I thought that I was the only griot in the family, and
mm.
I was quite honored to link up with you and my other cousin Jamila, and because we have pieces of the puzzle that we you know bringing together to make this nice pie. So I want to tell briefly how we linked up you know to the audience. This is my cousin Empress Straker-Holder ill. um, yeah, just tell them a little bit about that.
Well, first and foremost, giving thanks for the creator. Um, Definite love to you, King
You
Feerce.
sound a little bit muffled.
Um, to the esteemed. Oh, can you hear me now?
You sound a little bit muffled.
Hold on. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Keep talking.
Okay. This is saying giving thanks to yourself, as the king, and also to the matriarchs, Auntie Firebird, and to our cousin, Dr. Fatu. Um, I'm honored to
And
be here.
in the chat, let me know if y'all can hear her clearly. Put a one if you can while she's talking. Go ahead, cousin.
Okay, so I used to be one of those people that were very, very interested in genealogy. Because of the mixed dynamic of our family, me, for instance, being raised by a Vincentian, a Garifuna, direct Garifuna. My mother was born in where they call it Bequia, St. Vincent, and my dad and grandmother being born in Barbados, St. Lucie Parish. Very interesting, the same as our cousin Tituba of Salem, that came to Salem. It was always ingrained into me about know thyself, know where you come from, coming up
Say that
through
again,
parties.
cousin. You could say that again. Now, for those who don't know who Tatuba is, just give a quick, real quick, who Tatuba is, because it may be going over people's head. And then you're saying she's part of our
Oh,
lineage.
sorry, absolutely, like confirmed. So Tituba was she wasn't even from Barbados. She came through Guyana. and she was indigenous. So what the sister was talking about, um, Kalinago, if you will, the Kalinago and Arawak. She was a descendant of, um, I say ascendant, but descendant of slavery, and she was first owned by the Sandwich family, then bought by, or I should say, absorbed by the Paris family of Barbados. She was a plantation, a sugar plantation specifically, worker, and then she was brought with her family, the Paris family, to Massachusetts, which I live in right now. So I've done a lot of history in Salem, been to Salem, sat down with researchers there. They don't have the full story. Either way, Tatuba was, she knew herbs. We didn't use medicines and things like that at that time, right?
They
Naturally, we
say that she
used
sparked
bush.
the witch hunts, the Salem witch
Yes,
trials.
Tatuba
Yeah.
is a major part of the witch trials, which really just came to a local friar or pastor that wasn't getting his way. He wanted power and money and more stance, and he wasn't getting it through the board and the council. And so he tried to force Tatuba, and he actually did force Tatuba to give false testimony, as well as many, many others, threatening their family with financial ruin, all sorts of, there's still, we used to make confessions, their secrets. He was really ruthless. And so, long story short, um, the family, a lot of the families were sick. These specific girls in the family were sick, and Tituba used the bush. She healed them, but nobody else could heal them. Doctors, they brought them monies, all sorts of money spent to heal these girls, and they couldn't heal them. Tituba, even though she knew it was risky at that time, because anybody that was, especially female, that had a mind, spoke, had any type of healing, anything, um, they were considered as witch. You were witchcraft. You
Mhm.
didn't agree with your husband because you were getting beaten up. You were witchcraft. Either way, Tatuba was that person in our family. And to bring it further to what I believe it was Firebird was saying,
Mhm.
um, about family in the Kalinago. I'll touch on that later. But you were asking me how I came through. So I heard these stories. I heard a lot of stories about how our family, was in the Panama Canal, and how our family were chiefs and kings and royals in Nigeria and Ghana and the tribes. And I was actually blessed to be raised with Nigerians, Yorubas, and Ghanaian people in family parties, eating the food, learning the culture, learning the dance, learning the language,
Mm.
raising up with cousins that I didn't realize were actual blood cousins. You know how you all, if you were raised in New York, or, in an island kind of family, you got aunties. Like I refer to Firebird and maybe even Dr. Fatu as auntie. They're older than me, right? But
Mhm.
these were actual family members. But if you're West Indian, there's secrets, right? So you weren't really sure who was who.
Mhm.
But I was blessed to be able to be raised with that, and a lot of the stories. Um, later, um, sorry. Okay. So yeah, our family has a lot of griots, a lot of historians, and there's actually a few books that were made with who's who and where's where, all the way from Boy Straker, which is where cousin Feerce and I actually hail from, on his maternal side. Grandma, right? Grandma's,
Yeah.
yes, on
Mhm.
grandma's side. So further along, this always got me. Now, what another thing that made me start doing genealogy, I started doing genealogy at 12. One, for those who have seen me, I'm light bright as all get out. Okay, you would think I'm a mixed girl. Okay, I mean bright, as the West Indians say. I'm red like. Okay, I real clear skin. So being that, and then everybody else looking like Fierce in my family, beautiful caramel melanated, I'm like, somebody's not telling the truth. What's going on here? Granted, my dad is red. He's a red guy from Barbados, but even he's darker than me. So I'm like, what happened? I started doing history, started getting names, fell off a little bit, life, and then um I was on this whole, oh, DNA, they just want to know who you are, they're just tracking you, they just want you in the system. I was that person. I did not believe it, which is crazy because I have a family that literally traces itself, right? Well, I had a chance to go to a Roots Tech, um, what is Roots Tech? Yes, Roots Tech conference, and I gave a talk there about, my family's history, and they're like, "Have you even done your DNA test yet?" And I'm like, "No." Did it on a dare with the family, and I did ancestry.com, which no knock to ancestry.com. It's great for family connections, but for actual numbers, no. It's been, sorry, to each their own, but it's not good. I'm trying not to call it garbage, but it's bad. But it does give you kind of a snapshot, right? So I did ancestry.com, and the messages and the matches started flooding in, including matching me to my sister-in-law's family. Fast forward that this is like the pandemic. Everybody's locked at home. I'm working from home, schooling from home, children going through college. I'm really getting into it. I see this, I'm also Moorish. Um, and so I see this name pop up with Bay. And I'm like, no way. Like, at that time I was like heavily into Islam, you know, salams to everybody. And I'm like, I felt like I was the only person, just like Fair said. I felt like I was the only, I knew I wasn't the only conscious person because not any knock to my family, but we are some very smart people, like educated. You know what I mean? We don't waste life. Okay, that's just our lineage. Um, so I'm like, who is this guy? I message him, and I messaged him on June 2nd of 2021. So we're in 5 years lock solid. Okay,
Yep, yep.
and I'm like, hey, should I say salam? Salam alaikum? Like, I was like, no way, right? Now, mind you, I'd already connected with some other people on my mother's side, which she was very elusive because she was given away by her mom and didn't know her mother. So it was a lot of trauma there. It's a lot of trauma in the family, but there was a lot of trauma there. So I didn't know her side. I just knew like my poppy who passed early, my grandmother on my dad's side, and names. Well, DNA is real. The fact that I'm on this show right now, the fact that I connected to King Feerce, the fact that I'm connected to Dr. Fatou and Auntie Firebird, this is real. If you ever needed a sign to just go ahead and do your DNA for yourself, you don't even have to share. You don't have to connect with anybody else. Just to know for yourself, do it. For your grandchildren, for your other children or not children, just family. It makes so much sense. They say you need to know who you are so you're not told who you're not, right? That's one of the things I learned when I was speaking to the chief and chiefess of Suriname when I was in Trinidad. Learn who you are. And then also talk about DNA. Why is an uncle that I used to play dominoes with as a little child, bringing his Guinness to him? Don't come for me. It's a West Indian thing, okay? Bring his Guinness to him, playing bones. That same uncle I met in Trinidad and Tobago later, who knew my mother, who knew me on the spot. As soon as I said my name, he's like, "Are you so and so's daughter?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And this person is not only a griot, but he's one of the chief, he's the father of the nation for Trinidad and Tobago.
Mm.
Aaron Falami, you can look him up, or Esmond King, father of the nation for Trinidad and Tobago. But DNA linked me.
You there, cuz?
I can hear you.
You had faded out. You said DNA linked
Okay.
you, and then you cut off from
It
there.
linked me back. So everything that I was told, I would say about 1993. And I know that's broad, but trust me when I say I've literally traveled to the nations that have DNA, met family, have pictures, like even the smallest centum organs, you do your DNA. Uh-oh. And it says CM. It don't knock the smaller centum organs. That just means that person's a little bit further away from you. And as females, we lose. Like men, they stay kind of strong and they might actually add on their DNA amounts. I'm trying to keep this as, I guess, understandable as possible for everyone. But women, we lose. Each generation that comes down, we lose. Now, what's interesting is in our lineage, our matrilineage is so strong, and is matrilineage, excuse me, lineage, our mitochondrial DNA is so strong that not only does it connect to Lucy, which is not the oldest bones they found now in Ethiopia, but our numbers don't really diminish like that. Like my daughter has the same exact haplogroup as I do, right? Which is phenomenal to me, right? But then you go even deeper and you see Dr. Fatou's work, which I wasn't aware of until recently. And I'm having a whole conversation with King Feerce and blowing his mind because I'm like, oh yeah, this, and this, and we're this tribe and that tribe, and this is when we were that tribe, and this is our migration. And he's like, oh my gosh, I need to link you two together. So this amazing, profound matriarch is doing this research with her STR. I can't wait to take the test. And here's me living it, traveling, going to the islands, raising with the islands, getting this information, getting all of this good just jewels and meat and fruit before the encyclopedias close.
Mm.
And to see it now in numbers, like the Lumbee, I can say that we're definitely more inherent to the tribe than the the stamp, if you will, like Nigeria or sub-Saharan Africa. I can say that because it's also in my DNA. And look how high grandma is to me. But then Nana is up and to the side of me. Like that's an intermarriage of family, right? But
Mm.
because of the endogamy in our family, which is a whole nother episode, the
Yeah.
endogamy or the intermarrying of cousins, and even cousins that didn't know they were cousins, and sometimes siblings and half siblings, because of that, it's been done unintentionally and intentionally to keep that bloodline strong. So a lot of what you see with Nana Soso's history matches my DNA, and here I am, what, at least 2 generations beneath her. And that just gives another credence to just how strong and legit, I would say, the correct DNA is done, like the STR DNA, the one that Dr. Fatou does. I would definitely say my heritage um is legit. 23andMe, even though they have their issues right now, 23andMe is legit. And then you would, get with a genealogist and plug your information into jedmatch.com, and then it really opens up for you. Not to speak too long, one of the things that really made me start to travel, so when I did my ambassador travels, I always told them I need at least 1 to 2 weeks or a month to myself in those regions so that I can do my own research and my own missions and my own genealogic studies. I remember um before I went to Nigeria, I was going to get crowned, um, put the history back on our family. We are from a couple of royal lineages. And I remember going on GEDmatch and looking into the different tribes in that I was Nigerian. It wasn't just enough for me to be Nigerian. They have what's called projects. And I don't know, Dr. Fatu, I know you can definitely ring into this, probably you too, Auntie Firebird. They have been studying our DNA, and they have samples from our DNA for millennia. Hear me what I said. For millennia.
Mm.
These people, these societies have specific family lineages and specific tribes that they've literally been passing these samples that are in these jars and however else, and they've had this information and they've been plugging it in Harvard and all these other, it goes so much further than these Ivy League schools that they tell us about, because these projects were able to tell me what family, okay, the families that had at least 4 and 6 grandparents of generations in that particular region. They didn't want just, to your grandmother, your grandfather. No, they wanted great, 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 great. How long have you been in a place? Are you quote unquote indigenous to this place?
Mm.
They found at least two of my families. I would say the ones that I can confirm. One in Ibadan, and then on my Anambra, which is now Anambra State, it's Igbo. Okay. Why are the families that they connected me to the families that I was raised with? Okoye, Okoro, Adefunmi, Adayemi, right? And I actually was able to meet one of our great shucks, at that time she was on great aunties in Ibadan that matched that same test from that same exact family.
Mm.
That's when I knew this was way bigger. And to Dr. Fatou's credit, I was just smiling. I don't know. I put in the chat, but not the YouTube chat.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Fatou had mentioned that they want us to finally, they didn't want us to know who we were at first. Now that DNA has happened, they can't hide it, right? So they try to scramble us and get us all, oh, I'm this African and I'm that African. But I did that study like she did, and I went to what was the oldest that they could find. What was the oldest, most ancient? And it said Mesoamerican.
Mm.
Mesoamerican, which goes to when I was going through my Quiche Mayan and my Olmec, and I went through the Yanepa, the sweat tent, and met with the chief and chiefesses, and they told me that I was a daughter come home. You're like, okay, you just trying to get money? No, they weren't. They knew when they saw in me, and come to find DNA, what, 7 years later, and you're like, whoa.
Mm.
We literally started, and it's so crazy because I mean, to those of you all in the chat, how many is west and west is east? That we're really in the east, not the west, right? That has been flipped. And then
Mm.
you start getting into the triangles, right? And how they all connect, right? Okay, not to go into the deeper sciences, but everything is relative. When you look at it, exactly what Dr. Fatou said, look at where we come from. So Mesopotamian, all of this is inside of my DNA. And we're looking at a matriarch that is connected to my cousin, but she could be my aunt because of how much we're connected. So to those who are saying that DNA doesn't work, the fact that I am here with you today, it works. It's just a matter of knowing which DNA to take, right? And then what to do with it. Um, I would suggest go to gedmatch.com, go to or how to use GEDmatch, or how to use MyHeritage, or how to use 23andMe, how to understand it just for yourself on YouTube before you take it. And then connect with Brother Feerce. Connect if you can. Dr. Fatou, I don't know. I know she's really busy like I am, but connect with people, connect with groups. There's so many Facebook groups for genealogy that can teach you, and you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. My daughter's father passed away. Before that, he abandoned it, and we were able to find her family through genealogy on Facebook. So I'll stop there, but there's so much with the Kalinago. Oh, by the way, Auntie had asked, sorry, a little bit of history. Auntie had asked about the Kalinagos and their fight with the 16 and 1700s. They carried people, which is actually very disrespectful. It's really Arawak. The word carib is not a nice word. But the Arawak people, or the quote unquote carried people, they fought the British. So true to Saint Vincent. They called it the rainbow place, the blessed place, right? The Kalinago and the shipwrecked Africans, they want to say that, oh, they just brought everybody. No, there's plenty of people that jumped, that fought back. There was rebellions on ships, at least 7 known ships, and those slaves, those shipwrecked slaves, the ones that survived, they landed or were brought to St. Vincent. And those people mixed with the Kalinago, they mixed with the Caribs or quote unquote Arawaks of the land. And that's where the Garifuna was born, the Black Caribs, right? And they did fiercely resist colonization. Um, they were very dominant indigenous clans, very proud. Of course, there was inter-island fighting, and they had their own enslavement. We don't want to talk about that, but it is. Um, but knowing where you come from and knowing who those people are and seeing why they had to break the Garifuna, it was spite because they were broken before. They fought them and won before. And that's why they broke them up and moved them between St. Vincent, Guyana, especially Honduras, Belize, that type of way. And it didn't work because to this day they all see St. Vincent as the Mecca, as the motherland, as the birthplace.
You know what I mean?
So yeah, especially I think, let me get my information correctly. Um yeah, 1797. I had to pull it up. Um in the 1600s and 1700s, yeah, I was correct here. Survived enslaved and shipwrecked West Africans integrated into the Kalinago communities, creating a distinct Afro-Indigenous culture. These Black Caribs ultimately led major uprisings against the British, the Carib Wars. Look those up for anybody that's interested. It's a lot of information. Um, Before being exiled to Central America in 1797. Present-day Kalinago communities are located on the eastern coast of St. Vincent, primarily in and around Sandy Bay, which, cousin, that's where our family is. Fremont Valley, Bookament Bay, Beckway, and Layu, right? All of that's in the same area. There is an active push by modern groups to ensure the history and identity, is celebrated alongside Garifuna. So yeah, definitely look up the Carib Wars if you want to learn more about that. Um, Also too, cousin, I came across something I'm researching right now. It wasn't just Tituba. Remember I said that there was a couple of people when I went to Salem, I was told that there was another slave that was brought, a so-called she wasn't really an indentured. You know how they like to say indentured servant, but she was another servant. Her name was Candy. And I just learned that officially, I'll say I just learned it officially, maybe a week and a half ago, that this was a next person. Just by asking in the family, had they heard of Candy? Because I did hear that there was two that was taken, and that they, especially with our gifts, that they also were told that they were witches.
Told that they
So
were.
Candy was a
You broke up.
witches.
Witches. Okay.
Witches, but unlike Tituba, Candy had it a little bit easier. Candy was found not guilty and let go, but because Tituba was like, I'd rather die than sit there and say that I'm something I wasn't, and she fought against the um Reverend Samuel. Because she fought against him, he tried to make her an example, if you will, of what happens if you push back, right? So that's something that you might want to look after as well. She was also brought from the same area, in Bridgetown, Barbados, and she was also in the witch trials, Salem witch trials.
And for those in the audience who want a little bit of background about Tatuba, of course, it's not going to be, in any detail, but there's a movie. It's called The Crucible. It talks about Tatuba, a little bit. But of course, it's a movie, so you're not going to get into everything. But if you just wanted, a little bit of background, that's a movie that was out back in, I think, the 90s.
There's somebody here, this Mad Squabbles. It says, I'm a descendant of the Incas and the Pequot.
Of
That
Uncas.
is
Uncas.
Uncas. Yeah, the Uncas. Right. Yeah, the Uncas. So before
the show, remember when I was speaking about how I was able to find a lot of the chiefs, especially along the Delaware, Virginia, South Carolina line,
Mm-hmm.
through my quote unquote European ancestry, because of course they were mixing with them, right? It's crazy how you have to find your indigenous self through the people that mixed with your indigenous people because of their immaculate record keeping. But I think this person should definitely do more research on that, because I can verify that we also for sure have this sachem, because um I met with a chief in that area maybe about 2 years ago, and he
Mm-hmm.
was telling me then that they were coming up with their own test, especially the people like Mohican area, um, that they were coming up with their own specific test and moving away from like 23andMe, whichever, because they were finding that a lot of us were being tested or finding our actual family from some of their people that did take 23andMe, did take Ancestry, and did take My Heritage. But I
Mm-hmm.
know sure, for sure we are Quiche Mayan. We're Lakota Sioux, and that's disrespectful, but Lakota Sioux Hunk Papa. We're also Haudenosaunee, from New York, the New York area, the Haudenosaunee people, the people of the Longhouse, which they call the Iroquois, or the Raccoon people, which is why we have that darkening of the eyes. It's not actually from the Indian, it's from these people. And it's a vessel, it's a genetic vessel issue, with the darkening of the eyes.
And
So I just wanted,
this was part of the oral history of our family.
yes, and not just oral, but things that I've actually confirmed as well
Mm,
via DNA, and meeting with actual cousins, looking up indigenous. That's another thing too. When you're searching location, search
mm,
location, search tribe, and then using family search, and then my connections that I made when I was living in Utah. I did a lot of research, so much research to learn which histories to go to, which databases to go to, looking up parish, getting names and birth certificates. I learned that working with the LDS when I was living in Utah, in Salt Lake City. So when I have a thing where I don't speak it unless I've confirmed it. And if I'm almost sure, I'll say, well, I'm still in the process of. It doesn't benefit me or anybody else to say, oh yeah, this happened. No, these are things that I've spoken about. Like, I've used my money, not just government money, thousands and thousands, even on millions of dollars, living in places. I've become the ambassador and chief of places, like just recently in Tanzania and Zanzibar.
mm,
So sitting down with our Hadzabe people, for instance, going to South Africa, sitting with our San people, meeting some of our San cousins. I was at the tree where they hung one of our family members in Zanzibar. I went to Prison Island and literally cried, sat in the cell and have a lock that was on that cell with our one of our enslaved family members in Prison Island.
wow.
So these are places that I have seen, that I've gone to, that I've sat down with, that I've sat with cousins that matched our DNA profile. And you sit down and they start to tell the stories and it matches the stories that you heard. You can't make that up, like I've
Mm-hmm.
got pictures and video, which you have shared pictures and video. And what about the Maasai tribe? We're mainly Kikuyu, right? But we also have the Tanzanian Maasai. And I was able to go and sit down with the chiefs and be given a chief's welcome. And they dressed us and they went through the process, you know, and I now teach Maasai and help the Maasai. So
Mm,
then when we went up to Mataruni, I learned that we were also Chaga, right? Which is another major tribe. We have Ugandan, we have Rwandan. Like, I still haven't gone to Rwanda yet. I've been through Rwanda. I haven't gone. When I say two, I haven't sat down with the people I need to, family there, because it's too strong for me with the massacres. I have to go there and say my piece and release that off of us.
mm,
But these are very real places. Panama, the Panama Canal, your people, my grandfather, my great great grandfather, I had literally, you're doing your research, right? You say, oh, DNA is not real. Why do I have the fingerprints, the face, the role, the name of my great grandfather? DNA is very, very real. History is very, very real.
And
And
when you
the work
contact
that Dr.
me, you had all of the, or you had a list of surnames of people that you were looking for, and I saw
Yes,
all of the surnames right there.
exactly. It was like, wait a minute, what? Hold
Yep.
on. And you have So too and Cato.
Small,
Who was speaking
small
earlier
section.
about the Sephardic? Dr. Fatou. Another. I'm just gonna be checking off Dr. Fatou's list, okay? Because everything this matriarch is saying is literally matched my own research
Mm.
and travels. So I'm really,
That's why I wanted to pair you two together.
yeah. She's amazing. You're amazing. Sorry, I'm speaking like she's not on here. Um. So I am more, yes, I went through my Islam. I'm still consider myself Muslim, but I've always had a stronger connection to the Judaic side. Again, I
Mm.
was raised with Judaism. I was raised with Christianity and Catholicism. Um, I've always had that strong connection to the Torah, strong connection to that side. I never really could understand it until my mother finally broke something to me, and my dad later confirmed it. Did you know that our family were the Andalusian Jews, the Sephardic? Okay,
Mm.
our quote unquote
Mm.
Jew, I'm using Jew very loosely, right? You can't just take one tribe and make it a whole, but our Hebrew people were largely Sephardic. I would say literally 80 to 90% largely Sephardic. Portuguese and Spain, that side. We
Mhm.
were part of the Andalusian massacre. We were part of that people that fled. And when we fled into Jamaica. The Solomon, for instance, Dorcas Solomon, she's from that line. We fled into Jamaica, so they were Shlomo, but they became anglicized to protect themselves because they were still being hunted. People don't realize that during the slave trade, the British found that it was easier because they knew trade, they had money, they knew how to build in places. They were giving them serious loans, not only that they already had money, but they were making them plantation owners. For us, George Solomon in Jamaica was he was into like distillery and rubber and drink, right? Rum. Go figure. And
Mm.
so Dorcas Solomon is from that line. But I'm
Mm.
looking at how they used to change the names as well, right?
Now, what are
But
some of
Dr.
those
Fatu,
changes?
hmm?
What are some of those changes to that name?
So instead of like Solomon, you'd have Shlomo, you'd have Soso was actually Sosa, Striker, Straker, same people, Holder, Holdens, same people. Um, you have like Clark and Clark, like there are people that actually went. Do you know that five of our families actually were the backbone of Liberia? Like
Mm.
they were slaves, they got freed. Some of them rebelled, and they took five families. Whoever would go, whoever wasn't going, wasn't going. It was kiss, kiss, hug, hug, goodbye. They
Mm.
went back and they actually established. Um, Look up Crozierville. They actually established Liberia. Of course, there was a bunch of tribes
Wow.
there, and then the British tried to say that they're the ones that gave it to them. No, you didn't. They were just not letting you have it. So your reprieve was to say under the things of the AACP that you gave it to them. No, you did not give it to them. They
Mm.
told you what was going to happen, and they got their quote unquote independence. Okay, that's why it was called Liberia, because of the slaves that went back and the indigenous tribes that were there, specifically two major kingdoms, three really, but two major kingdoms that came together with the land. They agreed and adopted onto themselves their returned kinfolk, right? Which many of them were Congo, Ghanaian, Nigerian, what we now know as the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ugandan, and they all came back and they helped establish. And the Stryker family is still in office to this day. Straker steam. And there's a Hillary Striker I want to connect you with,
Okay.
who's was born and raised there, and his aunt was like the first president or something that
Mm.
was there, and just amazing history, and she's still alive. So
Mm.
again, I come back to saying that what Dr. Fatu was presenting is absolutely correct. Just on my own, I'm more Sephardic anyway.
Yeah, it was on that certificate.
It's everything there. I mean, the whole process. What's been mind blowing to me is to see the confirmations in Nana Soso's lineage match mine, because I thought, being that I'm dropped down in generation, that I would lose so much of that. Like, okay, the
Mm.
Indonesian Khmer, that's come up. The Filipino, now I know where that is. The Filipino and Suriname, that's come up. I met
Mm.
them, spoke to them, they confirmed. um it's just been amazing. It's
Mm.
I'm looking forward to taking the STR, honestly. I mean,
I
just to
got
see
you
what
on
else
that.
comes
I got you on that because I'm gonna order it. And as soon as I put my ducats together, I'm gonna order that for you. It'll be soon too.
up. Absolutely. Also,
Yeah.
too, for the people that have are wondering about how, um you ever seen somebody's like, oh, do you have West Indian in your blood? Don't knock it, because a lot of
Mm.
indigenous people were brought to Guyana, and from Guyana, which was a major slave port in Demerara, Guyana. Especially for us, we'll find that when you look up Guyana, specifically Demerara, that was the port, that was the cell port. They were brought to a place called Chancery, Barbados, Chancery. And it's called Chancery because it's just that, by chance you would catch a slave or you would not get a slave or whichever. It was
Mm.
very disrespectful, but it still stands to this day. They still give tours to this day. It's in Bridgetown, and that's where they were sold and distributed. And they were distributed because of their knowledge for agriculture, for sugar, for different crops, but they were also brought there to learn. So, and then brought back, their generations were brought back here. So now you have mixing going on between the indigenous Caribbean people, if you will, and the indigenous people of Turtle Island, which is America. And you're wondering, well, how? Because for my mom and my dad, I'm the firstborn, right? My paternal and maternal lineage, I'm the firstborn. In our whole entire line, I'm the secondborn. I have a cousin above me, Michael. So how the heck do we have all these quote unquote American people popping up? And in my own DNA, besides Mesoamerican, there's not one drop that says American, not one percentage.
Mm.
So it
Yeah.
just goes back to what Dr. Fatu said. Know your original self, right? And then be respectful to all of that. Even your European side, not all of them were bad, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. That was confirmation right there, Doc. What do you think?
I think that that's a good example where genealogy and doing DNA converge.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's what makes it very powerful.
Because everything that was on that certificate, she just validated, with the whole oral history and also what she researched and you know taught, came across and traveled and found out. And it's
Mhm.
all there.
And I want to say that
Can
Christian.
I ask the Empress a question?
Sure.
I just wanted to, she spoke of Filipinian. Does she know how far back her family comes from the Philippines? Because the modern Philippine people are not the original uh, people. Uh, And I was wondering if that's her lineage.
Empress, did you hear
Would
that?
she know? Because the Philippines, they don't want to show the original people really,
Right.
and it's like the Royal Hawaiians.
I did a whole show on that.
Yeah, they
So
don't
you're
really
speaking
want
of
to
the
show,
Negritos?
so she might have that ancient history.
Yeah,
Okay,
cause
so you're speaking of the Negritos,
right,
right?
right.
The what's it, Australo-Melanesian
Uh huh.
lineage, right?
Yes.
So right on a kind of like the in Australia, right? You have the
Uh huh.
indigenous people there, which they like to call them native, but no, native is not indigenous, right? So
Right.
for us, I believe that can, you know, what's kind of funny too. I have a story on that, but what's for me looking back at the line, I believe it was between 50,000 to 60,000 years ago.
Oh, okay. So
Um,
you're from the original people. Okay.
from the original. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
And the only reason
because
why I'm saying that is looking at the map and the timing of when who would is I'm looking at right now, I'm looking at path. I'm watching path. What
uh-huh.
family, what line went where? Because there's another misconception that we were taught everything. Where, no offense to any Europeans that might be listening to this, they came to Ghana, they came to Congo, came to West Africa to learn bathing and proper toileting and waterways and plumbing, right? We
Right.
were on boats, we were sailing long before we were doing trades and spices. We were not in
Right.
a fishbowl where we
Right.
did not leave out of Alkebulan in Africa. So
Right.
the way that it's told in my family and by the late Esmond King, the griot, and by the way, he was a known genealogist and griot, right? In Trinidad and
Uh-huh.
Tobago, was that our family and our numbers are so big. If you look at any Straker reunion or any of our family reunions, we literally take the whole park, the whole state parks. Okay. Our family was so big. We went from place to place, island to island, country to country, and we absorbed people. We absorbed their faith. We absorbed their cultures. We absorbed their language. We did a lot of mixing. And then we moved on. We were Nilotic people, but we were always like hunter gatherers and grazers and chiefs. And we were always in this place of leadership, if you will, right? And so I believe that 50 to 60,000 years ago, which I have actually confirmed, um, I want to say more towards the 60,000 years ago. That was one of the places that we went through. Remember, the Filipinos, or what we know as the Filipinos, were also boat faring people. So it's
Right.
very easy to see where that connection went, if that helps.
Yeah, it's important. It's important to me because Fierce and I, we encounter so much racism um, with certain groups of Indians, and they really don't
Mm,
know. They don't know or want to know the history, and books are also guilty, and pictures of leaving out um, original people. You know.
Yeah, that's Hawaii. Mad squabbles. Yeah, King Kamehameha. Yeah, I
let's
know
not even
exactly what
talk about
you're talking
that. Like, we have Maori, we have Polynesian as well. The Suriname chiefess is the one that put me on that. She was
Yeah.
like, we're all one nation. And there was a lot of divide with that. I mean, even within the Polynesian Maori, they're fighting each other, they're cousins. Um, Auntie, you should probably look at the Manila Galleon, Manill or Minilla Galleon trade, Galleon trade. And
Okay.
remember Portuguese and Spanish colonizations. And I mean, I'm not really upset, just like I'm not really upset with Africans. Assimilation was for the longest time, right? Even in the Caribbean. And so it was easier, especially where you are now less melanated or whatever, to assimilate and say, oh, no, I'm Portuguese. Na Pinoy na familia. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
when I speak to them, they're like, oh, you speak Tagalog? I'm like, yeah, my mom spoke Tagalog fluently. Why? Because my mom told us that we were Filipino. She told me this towards the end of her life, but she spoke Tagalog fluently through all my years of knowing her. And I'm like, okay, how many more secrets, lady? Like, how? I want to know, I would love to know how she found out. But then again, being in St. Vincent, there was a lot of workers too. You know what I mean? Like how she found out that we were um as well.
For the audience, the original Filipino people, that they do show, they have afros
Mm-hmm.
and more Afro indigenous features, not like the ones they want to promote in travel videos and things like that.
Exactly.
So it's important to get this type of history and science out there,
Mm-hmm.
for
I would
audiences
look
like
into the sorry, sorry, TT. I would look into the Aita tribe.
Yeah,
AET.
yeah, A E
Yeah, the Aita tribe.
A.
TA. Mm-hmm. The Aita tribe.
I did
And
a whole show on that
how
a
they
few weeks ago.
yeah, my sources say that's the tribe that we're more closely related to. That's the one that shows up in our DNA.
Mm.
And
wow.
if you can find that, look up the Negritos.
Right, right.
Negritos. That's what they're usually called, Negritos.
Mm-hmm.
Filipino Negritos. But the Aita tribe is the tribe that I'm doing a lot more research on and just following that lead.
Mm-hmm.
Not 100%, but it more even the features with the blonde, the curly hair, the nose, the forehead, especially that big forehead with that we share with Rihanna, our cousin. No
Yeah.
disrespect to
Mm-hmm.
her, but that was another thing. So I think because I showed you how we were related to Rihanna,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The
Yeah,
Brathwaite.
the Brathwaite. Yeah. And
The
also
Brathwaite.
too,
I
so
match a
her
lot.
mother,
I match a lot of Brathwaites on my
mm,
DNA. Mm-hmm.
and Brathwaite is funny because Brathwaite is both on the Straker side as well as the Holder side, mainly on the Holder side, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're literally like first cousins to
Mm-hmm.
us, and the Braffett, right? So the Braffett family, the Holder family, Corbin, Lane, Edward, immediate. But there's so much like my mom and dad are cousins. They didn't know they were almost third cousins, and they were horrified. But you know, when the roll is, I told you, when the roll is read at the wedding by the griots, everybody either gets sick, runs out, or just laughs. Because what can you do? What can you do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, thank you for educating many out there, not joining in but watching, that they have racism in their heart, and it's good to keep educating people no matter what.
Oh yeah. Oh
Agreed.
yeah.
I think people fear what they don't know, even in the mundane things of life, right? Don't want to leave a church because you're afraid of what everybody's gonna say. Don't want to leave in this Islam, or don't want to leave this, or don't leave a job. And really, it just comes to knowledge of self and staying in your own lane, right? We put the information out for those of us like us that are searching for people like us, like you're
Mm-hmm.
doing, and with your amazing knowledge and keeping us grounded and remembering where we came from and what was done. It's not even about the, oh, we're going to stick it to the man. No, it's what did the quote unquote man, what did the system do to dilute us or to redirect us? And there's a reason, because once you know who you are or where you come from, you now have examples of reminders of people that they could not kill. You literally are from a line that they could not whip enough, beat enough, excuse the expression, grape enough. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Do the most worst things, make them sleep with each other enough, use them as all sorts of manners of things, or come and take their kingdoms and slaughter their family in front of them. We literally, when my cousin and I stood by that tree in Zanzibar, that they built this huge Anglican church that was literally built on the bodies, okay, of people that they slaughtered. Massive churches.
Mm.
We literally said, we hail from those that you could not kill. And the blood, we have a saying in our family, our lineage, that the blood always finds each other. Just like I found Brother Feerce, Brother Bay, right? I found Dr. Fatou. I found you, Auntie. We're always going to find each other. So this
Right.
what we're doing right here is, even after we're long gone, if there's anything still such as YouTube or whatever, this is a legacy right now. We're putting out a legacy when our children finally do get interested in things like this. Like my daughter can tell you the whole bunch about where she comes from and where she's been. But is she really interested in it like that? You know, she did her DNA, she got her answers, and she's like, okay, I'm good. But
Mm.
then there's others in my family, you know, that I do the DNA for, and they've had 20, 30, even 50-year-old mysteries, and you sit down with them in an hour, you have pictures and videos, or pictures and DNA, you know, answers for them. And that's why we do what we do. So for those that are going to listen to this show, I pray that you are as blessed as I am to sit in the midst of grace and to learn and to listen. And maybe DNA isn't for you, but don't knock it until you try it.
Mhm.
Right.
Now
I
that.
I have a question for Fierce.
Mhm.
Uh, you're Garifuna. The Empress is Garifuna as well. Um, why do you think so many Garifuna gravitate just the African side of themselves and not a balance of both?
Well, what I've learned just from being around that community is that a lot of the Garinagu, which is the plural of Garifuna, a lot of them really don't really know the history. They know what they've been fed from the colonizers, but a lot of them are actually, when you talk to those who are like the learned ones, they're moving away from a lot of the old narratives. Like, for instance, like the slave ship story that we've been given about the Garifuna, okay, they're moving away from that now because there's too many holes in the story. The timelines conflict a lot, and the narratives were given by the colonizers. So, in terms of uh, the Garifuna or the Garinagu people, they are looking more at, in terms of the history, they're looking at the Malian Moors who came to the New World under Abubakari, King Abubakari II. Okay, and of course, for those who know, they came in the 1300s in approximately, well, there's different, depending on what source you read. Some say 200 ships, some sources say 2,000 ships. Whatever the number is, we know that they came in great numbers to the New World. And when you read my book, let me see if I have it right here. When you read in my book here, which documents all of that uh, very in very very heavy detail. And not to toot my own horn, but I would say that this book is one of a kind in terms of really documenting all of these things with receipts. Um, we know that there were tribes here in the Americas that have Moorish names. Okay, just the fact that you got tribes like Mandinka, okay, tribes
Mm-mm.
called El Mami, and things of that nature, which are obvious Moorish names. You know, that's just naming a couple. There's so much more, okay? But we know that they did come over here. And not only that, but also when you talk to, like, when you listen to a lot of the elder, uh, Garifuna elders, they'll tell you that even before those Africans came here, they were already here. I'm talking about the dark skin uh, element, okay, in St. Vincent, okay. They were already dark skinned even before those Africans came over here on the ship, whether it be in the shipwreck or whether it be those that came over as explorers. But most, when I talk to a lot of uh, Karinagu, they don't even know a lot. Like a lot of them, like give you an example. I had a coworker. She thought that Saint Vincent was in Africa, and she's born in the culture and everything. And when we got into a discussion, I said, "Yeah, my mother is from Yorome," and she's like, "Oh yeah, 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 in Africa." I'm like, "No, no, Saint Vincent." She's like, "Yeah, that's in Africa," and she was arguing with me, trying to tell me that Saint Vincent was in Africa.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm trying. So in other words, what I'm saying is that just because somebody says that they're Garifuna, that doesn't mean they necessarily know the history. To
Yeah.
put it in a nutshell.
Right.
The doc dropped off. Let me see if
Empress too.
no,
Oh, I
Empress is
see
there.
somebody.
No, Empress
Empress
is
is
there.
still there. Yeah.
Empress is there. Let me
I have to go pray soon, but
just hold on.
Can I address a comment from Mad Squabbles?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Which one?
they were
Is
talking about
this
the
current comment or a previous one?
uh, it was made not too long ago. They were talking about having Philippines in their DNA. I just figured it was from my Shinnecock ancestors because
Oh, yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
were whalers and traveled as far as the whales would go. Um, that's also very poignant too. Um, because they were one of the recognized tribes that have quote unquote African peoples. Um, as they quote unquote the African the word. But the northeastern tribes, like many federal recognized tribes, like the Mashpee, Wampanoag in Massachusetts, I'm actually very much connected to here. There's Shinnecock, which was in New York. The Narragansett people of Rhode Island, which you were speaking about, have genealogical lineages that both have African American ancestry and Native American ancestry and recognize the intermixing of the two. Um, I'm not exactly sure how the Philippines, not in the early times anyway, maybe in the later times, but then we're also forgetting too about the Beringial Indians. If you have Beringian in your DNA, it might be interesting to look at because a lot of the Philippines, um, or what we know as the Negrito, excuse me, they actually were forced to come over during the Bering Strait as well. This whole messed up ideology that, oh, the Indians were brought over through the Bering Strait. Seriously. So all of them would just marched over this Bering Strait. But that might be something that you might look into to see if you have Beringian um on your DNA profile.
I know a lady that runs an organization in Philadelphia. She is Filipino and Lumbee. And I don't know how far back her Filipino lineage goes, but she's definitely Filipino. So I was always curious about that. And us talking tonight explains a lot. Hello? Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry, I had my mic muted. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was saying there's a comment that I wanted to highlight here from Mad Squabbles. He says the first Indian hung in Connecticut by a mixed jury during the Salem witch trials was one of his grand. Well, I'm saying it could be a her. I'm sorry, Mad Squabbles, if you're a her. I'm not sure if it's a him or a her. Was their grandfather? It's one of their grandfathers.
I was also muted too.
Oh yeah.
To answer your question, look into the Manila Men. I read this documentary on that about the very first Filipino settlements. It was what, mid 1700s, early 1800s, around that time. And they there was a lot of intermarrying, intermixing, which makes me really go back to in the Philippines, if a lot of those original Philippines were Ada people or Negrito peoples, and they didn't mind back then to mix with melanated people because there was a lot of intermixing. There was also ancestral mixing, um, and a lot of the Lumbee have Filipino DNA, which is very interesting. So
Yeah.
that shows that during that
Have which DNA? You faded out for a second. Have they have which DNA?
the Lumbee, a lot of people that are have Lumbee heritage also show Filipino heritage, like
Mm,
lineage.
wow.
And I know they intermarried a lot. The Lumbee ancestors intermarried a lot with the European settlers and also other free people of color.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the Lumbee specifically, or the people that have a higher level of Lumbee lineage, in DNA, show a very diverse, multi-ethnic makeup.
Mm-hmm.
But I know they have like the Siouan, Algonquin, Iroquois, um, and I know that especially around like the Carolinas, they had to survive, right? Colonization. So and they knew that area. They knew how to that swamp area. Nobody wanted it, but they knew how to cultivate that for rice, sugar, you know, cotton, anything that they needed.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer that question, I think that's probably where that connection went. But definitely look up
Yeah,
the burnt swamp burnt oh
she's Filipino and Lumbee. She runs an organization in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that's probably where the connection went, that it was already in her DNA. It was already in her ancestry. And again, like our family, they just, oh, we've already done it once and they intermarried again. But look up the Burnt Swamp Baptist Association. They have a major history of Lumbee and Filipino and other European and foreign races intermarrying database. and also look up the Manila Men, and it'll
And,
tell you about the first Filipinos families, where they went, who they married.
and
Right.
say they've also made it all the way to 1028. William the Conqueror on their mother's side, Mad's father.
Mm.
Nice.
What happened to the doctor? She's gone.
I was trying to. I just texted her. She dropped off. I was trying to see. Well, let me. I had texted her. Let me call her. To see. Hold on one second. Yeah, yeah. I just spoke with the doc. She said she has to get up 4 a.m. Um, that's why she had to jump off. Can you hear me, Firebird and cousin?
Okay. Well, I'm going to sign off too.
Yeah,
And it was wonderful speaking to everyone
It's
and
a good
joining
show. I
in
learned
with
a lot.
some history.
yeah, yeah. Definitely, definitely, for sure. I thank you for joining.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Much thanks and respect.
and
Hopefully, I'll see you on the family chat, Auntie.
Firebird,
Oh, I didn't hear you. What
Fire,
happened? What happened?
Empress was asking you a question.
What was that?
You there, Empress?
I was saying I learned a lot. It's very good to meet you. Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. We hear you.
I say I learned a lot. It was very good to speak with you and glean from your wisdom. And hopefully, I'll see you in the family chat.
Oh, that, I hope to see you one day in person too, or on another show.
Yeah. And
Create a one.
Denzel, early 55, says Maroons. That came up a little bit uh, earlier in the conversation. I'm not sure what it was in
Oh,
reference.
we were supposed to speak about the parade, but we'll do it on another time. I have to put some things in order.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, and Red Owl Creation says, hi, Dr. Fatou Diara and Firebird. I did a quick research on Haplogroup G. Is a descendant. Quick research: Haplogroup G is a descendant of Haplogroup M. It is a Middle East haplogroup according to Wiki.
According to Wiki.
Uh,
Oh, okay. Interesting. That's what I wrote.
Oh, okay.
I think that's wonderful history that they don't let you know,
Right, right.
and that's actually part of your heritage,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of your history, your family tree.
Oh yeah. Okay, Matt Squabble said, okay, he's a man. Yeah, I didn't want to be disrespectful and just assume. So yeah, thanks for letting us know. And Quina said good night. Okay, thank you for joining again. And okay.
Oh, we'll speak again on the weekend,
Okay.
and share some more history.
Okay. Yeah. Um Jeanette wants to speak after the show. Um
I'm going to bed.
yeah,
Although
yeah.
I have some things to do.
Yeah, I'm about beat too myself. I came straight from work here. Didn't even get a chance to eat my food. Came straight to the computer. Yeah.
Okay.
Literally, I'm warming it up now. My daughter ate. I didn't eat because you caught me at work. You're like, where you at? I'm
I
like,
don't know.
okay,
I,
girl.
I don't know if you'll be available for a board meeting on Sunday. I don't know what your schedule is.
I'll make the time.
Huh?
I'll make the time for the
Uh,
board. Yeah, I said I'll make the time.
you'll make the time?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Uh,
Alrighty, alrighty. And since most of the chiefs you brought on your past shows from the Northeast are on my family tree, all along Long Island chiefs, that Mohawk chief, Two Hawks, I have family ties to.
is a Two Hawk saying he's Mohawk? No, I think he's
No, he's saying
Narragansett or something.
no, he's saying who he's talking about his uh
Huh?
uh this guy here, Mad Squabbles. He's talking about who he's related to.
But he's talking about Turtle Gang in the same sentence with Chief Two Hawks. Is that the same? The Two Hawks I know, he's not Mohawk.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
He's
Oh,
he's from a branch of the
he's not
Narragansett.
Mohawk, he's Narragansett.
Yeah,
He's Narragansett. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Not only that, they were warring tribes, and they didn't come together until the peace treaty with the marriage till much later.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I thank you, Mad Squabbles, for joining in, and everybody who stayed with us, this whole time. And oh, okay, yeah, yeah. You probably speaking in the phone. It always messes up what you say. It happens to me all the time. Yeah. Let's see. I think we got everybody there. And whoever we didn't get, please accept our apologies. And we're gonna close it out now. And we may do a part two because my DNA results should be here either this weekend or next weekend. So we're gonna schedule for another one. All right.
Oh, you're getting another DNA test?
I did one with for myself.
Native DNA. Oh, okay. Let me know.
Yeah, that's supposed to be here any day now.
Okay. I'll
Yeah.
speak to you on the weekend.
Okay.
Okay. Da-da-da.
Da-da-da. All right, everybody. So we're gonna close out now, and I'm gonna say, oh, and Empress, yeah, we'll definitely be in touch. So I got some things definitely want to share with you.
We'll powwow like we usually do.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like,
Okay.
so long.
Yeah, all righty. So you enjoy the rest of your night and enjoy that food.
Okay. For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. You already know.
All right then.
Arabian kitchen.
Yep. All right. So salam. All right, everybody. So I thank you all for hanging with us. I know it was long, but the information was powerful. And I'm gonna say to everybody, till the next time, Dododagoha'i, Sir Man, Ayo.